Welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. I'm Natalie Born. I'm the media host for Thrive Today and the founder of Innovation Meets Leadership. We are a podcast for women who lead and believe. And today we're sitting down with Angel Marie. She is a faith-based success coach and the founder of an online learning platform known as Empowered Mission. She focuses on equipping creative entrepreneurs to achieve God-empowered spiritual, mental, and financial freedom, which is so cool. And I just think she's awesome. And so I cannot wait for you to meet her. Hello, Angel Marie. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing so good. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Okay, well, I thought it would be fun to share with people that the first time we met up, we actually got to speak at a youth conference together for Victory. And we had
Mm.
the pleasure of speaking to middle school and high schoolers about business. I thought that was pretty cool.
That was honestly one of my favorite speaking engagements of 2023 because I remember walking away from that being like, I'm so used to educating and coaching adults who are already entrepreneurs or trying to get there, but it's a whole different kind of impact and feeling to teach the youth so that they could prepare in advance. It was amazing.
Well, I was shocked at how great their questions were. Like, I felt like they were asking better questions than adults. And so my only sad part was that I didn't write their questions down because I felt like they
Yeah.
had some phenomenal questions for our
Yes.
panel. It
They
was so
really
cool.
they really did. Some of their questions, I was like I had to think about it. Like, I'm like, "Wow, I wasn't expecting such a mature
Yeah.
question." Like, that just goes to show that they were born to be creatives or entrepreneurs in their field. I could already tell.
Absolutely. Well, I would love if you could share with our listeners a little bit about what you do. You have such a cool background, and I think it would be fun just to dive in and tell them a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Natalie mentioned, I like to call my field a success coach because a lot of people that come to me are looking to specifically start an online business and they're looking to make sure that they develop their brand messaging, email marketing, and social media marketing to the best way that it can possibly be. So, I really help people build online businesses, but there's a faith-based life coaching aspect to it where I focus a lot on mental health and spiritual growth within every client or student that I serve. And it's so funny because it's like, a lot of people that come to me are Christian, which is beautiful. Like, we can straight up talk about Jesus. I could do that all day. But for those that come to me that aren't Christian, like, I even what it is that I teach them, it's still based off of biblical principles, even though they may not know it. Cause I'm just like, that is the most important thing to me? So yeah.
I love that lens. Like, talk to me a little bit about why you decided that that piece was so important, especially the mental health piece in today's world, crazy world at
Yeah.
that.
Oh man, I know. Yeah, so I I have been in the marketing entrepreneur field, I mean, since even before college. So I would say for the past 10 years since graduating high school, I've just been pursuing all different sorts of creative fields from music to acting to now, building businesses. And throughout the entire process of that, I've just seen a trend where people were struggling so hard with their mental health and their well-being and feeling okay within the creative field that they were in, right? Like, there's this surface level view of people where they are pursuing, financial wealth and they just want to get successful and they want to make their dreams come true. But internally, it's a mess.
Mm.
Internally, they are struggling. They're dealing with burnout. They're dealing with insecurities. They're dealing with spiritual warfare. And I have seen that trend no matter what creative field it's in. And I have just felt called to make sure that that approach in providing solutions to that is in everything that I teach. And it just comes so naturally to me. Like, now I can't just talk about business or marketing to people. Like, we have to talk about God. We have to talk about spiritual warfare. We have to talk about mental health because you cannot ever truly achieve what I call God empowered success unless internally you are okay enough to sustain it.
That's so good and so powerful because I feel like this is the crux of what I see a lot of the younger generations dealing with. And it's interesting because as I think about it, I'm like, well, I think that many different generations have dealt with it. They just called it different things or labeled it different things, or maybe just didn't even talk about it.
Mm,
And so maybe to people on the outside, everything seemed fine, but then internally, right, when the doors close and the window shades are shut, like internally, there's challenges that they're not mentioning or talking about. So what I love about what you're saying is you're pulling this idea front and center that in order to be successful, you need to think about your mental health. It's not a either or, it's a yes and.
exactly, it is the yes and, absolutely, and that's what I always like to say too is I will not teach anyone how to reach quote unquote external success without focusing on internal success first. It's just so essential, and I think the world that we're living in now, we strive to seek satisfaction in all the external things when in actuality you will never feel that. No matter,
Mhm.
seven-figure business, eight-figure business, you will never feel that. There will always feel like there's something missing, and that's because you've spent so much time trying to pursue and chase after all of these external goals without even putting as much time and effort into pursuing your internal growth when it comes to your faith, when it comes to any sort of battles that you're dealing with and things like that.
That's so good. I can look back in my career and I can remember a time where I was going after this role really hard. And it was like in my mind, I was like, okay, once I get this role, I will feel like I've arrived. And I remember a colleague of mine that had been at this type of area a lot less, he hadn't been there as long as I had. I remember he got the role and I was having a straight up temper tantrum with God, and I was like, "I can't believe this," and I'm, like, going down the list, and I've done all these things, and I've, accomplished all this, and how in the world, and how is this possible? And he said, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, what?" He's like, "When it doesn't define you, you'll have it." And I was
Wow.
like, "You know what? Dang it." Because first of all, that hurts, but it's also real. And so often, and when I finally did get that job, I realized that my brain kicked in to say, "Okay, what's next? What's next? What's next?" And so there's this like hunger, right? This insatiable hunger that we can sometimes think that is okay to have. That's actually not godly, and it doesn't put us on a good, healthy path for success because
Yeah.
it's really never enough. Like I think about that song, right, with by what is it, The Greatest Showman, where she's like, "I could hold the whole world in my hands and it would never be enough." And I think that a lot of people suffer from that where it's always trying to hit that next goal, and it never fulfills the way we think it will.
Exactly, exactly, and it's also this pattern of trying to get to that next goal before it's your time to even achieve it, if it's in alignment with God's calling for you,
Mhm.
and you had brought up a good point where, like, that's such a beautiful statement that God had put on your heart in regards to you'll get it when it no longer defines you,
Mm,
and it's so interesting because God chooses you to scale up or to get this promotion or to succeed in this business or whatever when the timing is right. And you might feel like you're ready and questioning why not me? When in actuality it's like, well, God knows why not you. He
mhm.
knows that, and it's just so important to be able to trust it and like to not put everything into the numbers of the external success, but more so reflecting inward, starting from there and watching the miracles that God will work in your life, your career, or your business.
It's so good. What would you say are some of the themes or trends that you dealt with last year in your coaching business in terms of what were people mostly struggling with? And then what were some of the ways you were able to just kind of guide them through that?
Yeah, such a great question. One of the biggest ones was so many people that I coached were struggling so hard and feeling like they didn't have a unique enough voice to make it in this field that they felt called to be in. They didn't feel like they had the confidence or the authority to even be within that industry or niche. And it's so interesting because that is deeply rooted in playing the comparison game. You're looking at
Mhm,
all these other people that are maybe in your field of work that you look up to, you see their successes, and now we're back to that question of why not me,
mhm.
right? And we look at their light and we allow that to diminish our own. And we allow
Wow.
that to make it seem as if we don't have a light of our own. So I really have seen that a lot last year and really just having to work with my students and clients in helping them realize their own uniqueness and to stand confident in it so that they could walk confidently in that path and just have tunnel vision on their path rather than looking to the left and the right of everybody else's. So yeah, I would say that that is a big one. And then another one is financial inconsistency. A lot of people, when they start off in business or entrepreneurship or a creative venture, a lot of times your finances are going to be inconsistent, especially at first. So they struggled with that. And we had to talk in terms of, financial freedom doesn't just mean making money. It also
Mhm.
means budgeting. It also
Yeah.
means stewarding the money you do have well, no matter how little it might have been at that time. So talking about things like that and then how you can layer that with faith so
Mhm.
that God can steward you in the right way and grow you when the time was right.
That's so good. That is a big one. I was just talking to somebody today that has tried to go out on their own and do a little bit in that space of like entrepreneurship, but they don't have a lot of experience. And I think there's this there's this kind of connection point of helping people gain confidence. Some of it is like we just need experience. You need exposure to gain confidence and time under your belt. And sometimes when people don't have that, they do feel that imposter syndrome a little bit more than people who may have, 5, 10, 15 years in something. And so part of the conversation that I find myself constantly having is like, is it imposter syndrome? Is it that maybe you don't have the experience or the weight under your belt to do the thing you're trying to do? So how do we partner you with somebody who does so that you
Right.
can learn, glean, kind of pick up really fast? And I think that or do you have all the experience, but you're just completely self-doubting and you're completely, not believing in who God's called you to be? And it's so difficult sometimes to decipher what is it? Like what's the thing? Because sometimes, people can sit in one of those 3 buckets and helping them pull apart. No, you just need to connect with someone who can mentor or train you in this field versus you've got it. You just need to believe that you can do it. It
Yeah.
can be a challenge.
100%. And at the end of the day, everything is deeply rooted. And
Mhm,
it is up to each of us as individuals, no matter what field we're going in, to get to the root of what is causing this issue, what is
mhm,
causing these negative thoughts or emotions that I'm feeling. And it's you as the person have to make the choice to be willing to do that deeply rooted work so
mhm,
that you can heal all that up and move in the direction that you need to go in. And I find that a lot of times too for people that feel that imposter syndrome and it is deeply rooted in them just feeling like they don't have enough experience. There's a couple of things I always say to that. One is always be coachable,
mm.
right? It doesn't matter if, you have all experience in the world and you're running a seven-figure business, still be coachable. Like
Yes.
learn from people that are running eight-figure businesses, learn from wise counsel. There's
Mhm,
always room to grow. And secondly, I feel like it's just really essential to also remember that a lot of times when people start businesses specifically, they're not just attracted to your expertise, they're attracted to your personality. They're
mm,
attracted to your light if you would just let that come out.
yeah,
And I am a living, walking testimony that, like, any job that I've gotten in the past or client that I've gotten that, when I just started my business, I remember not feeling qualified for it at all.
mm.
But having to learn that what qualifies me is just the personality that I brought and just God shining his light through me for people to see, in a matter of different ways. So, yeah, it can go in so many different directions, but it really just starts with digging up those roots, man, and mapping it out from there.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm wondering, you coach entrepreneurs. What would you say are, if you could give them like 3 to 5 tips on just core things that either you feel like you're saying all the time to people, right? Or some things that you feel like, man, even when you were getting started, things you wish you had known about this field. Because so many of the women that listen to this podcast are taking that journey into the field of entrepreneurship, or they are wanting to take that leap and they're maybe a little bit hesitant.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I would say one of the biggest ones that I had to learn or challenge I had to overcome was letting that perfectionism go.
Mm,
And you might be listening to this and you might be thinking, well, that I don't struggle with perfectionism. If any part of you is hesitating from simply starting what God is asking you to start in entrepreneurship, you have a perfectionism problem. And I
mhm.
mean, that's okay, but you have to dig that up and work through that. And the reason why I say that is because the reason why you might be hesitant in starting is probably coming from a place of fear
Mhm.
and or coming from a place of feeling like you don't have everything in place yet to even start.
Right.
95% of the time, that's probably where it's coming from, and subconsciously, you're thinking, "Well, I have to do this first. I have to talk to this person. I have to build this site. I have to make sure this is in place," and it's like, "Just move.
Yeah.
Just move, and God will meet you there. He will pivot you. He will navigate you. You just have to move." So, I would say when I first started, I had to learn that. I had to stop hesitating and I had to just move and let God pivot me, whether I made a mistake, whether, in the ups and downs, I just had to move. And of course, there's going to be seasons where God asks you to be still and, that's your own discernment, but a lot of the times God is just waiting on you to just move and being willing to walk hand in hand with him.
That's so
So
good.
I
Before
would
you go
Yeah.
to your next tip, I wanna say this, 'cause you're like, there's a couple things I wanna say here. One, I used to have a CEO that would always say 80%, the 80% rule. So once you're 80% there, go ahead and get it out there, right? So don't try to get it to 99.9 or 100, like 80%. The other thing that I think you'll see that's, like, probably widely known for people that are willing to start is when you look back on what you did a year ago, yeah, it'll probably be a little embarrassing. Like, you may even laugh at what you did a year ago, but you moved forward, and the only way to get better was by actually putting something out there. Like, the other day, I went and scrolled to the end of my Instagram feed, like, back to the beginning, and I had a great laugh of like, "Ooh, like, what was I doing with the font?" And, like, what were these, like, templates I was using? And, like, why did I think they looked good at the time? And I just had a great laugh with myself, but like, just start, right? And then you're gonna look a year from now and be like, "Man, I've really come a long way," which is better than, "Huh, I wonder what it would have been like if I started a year ago."
Oh my gosh, big time, big time. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I kept hearing too when I was starting my entrepreneur journey was just do it scared, just do it messy. Like
Mhm.
just go, just move. And man, that is just it's so essential. And I'm in the same boat with you, Natalie, where I remember looking back at my seriously old website and just being like, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen." But at the time, I was like, "Oh, look at me. Like, I'm doing it. This is great." You know what I mean? And you just gotta do it. Like, so what if your website isn't all that great? So what if you haven't sold this product or service that you wanna put out there? Like, just go, and it'll figure itself out the more that you keep walking in God's calling for you.
I love that. Give us another one.
Yeah, I would say another big one, challenge that I had to overcome when I first got started. I mean, just going back to finances, like,
Yeah.
I remember because I had left at the time, I was in a really great job. I loved that team. I still to this day miss that team. It was a hard role, but it was such a blessed role. And I remember 6 months before I left, God told me that in 6 months, it would be time to leave and start what it is that I'm doing now. So, I took that time within those 6 months to really prepare for that, and then when I transitioned out of my job and started my own, when those paychecks went away, I was like, "Oof, this is so this is what it's like."
Right.
And I struggled with that for a while. Like, I was so used to the the balance and the consistency of the biweekly paychecks. And then when
Yeah.
you go into entrepreneurship, you first hit, well, I'm not seeing any money come in. Then comes the phase of, well, I'm seeing money come in from all these different sources at different times in the month,
Yep.
and finances were just everywhere. And I remember when tax season came, last year, I bawled my eyes out. I was like, I cannot believe how messy my financial situation was, even though I felt like I was making good money at the time. Like I had to hire a tax expert and it just, man, it was awful. And but you know what? I can now say I know what that is like
Hmm.
and learned from it and now can teach other people in regards to making sure that you position yourself to be financially good, not just in regards to the income that you're earning, but budgeting and, making separate checking and saving accounts and hiring bookkeepers and
Mhm.
a back office system or tax experts ahead of time to make sure that you are taken care of.
Yeah, this is a big one. And I want to double down on some of the things you said because I feel like this is an area where I see a lot of people crash and burn and really put themselves in a financial kind of place of hardship at times. Some of the things that I feel like I've learned from mentors over the year is that it's kind of like what you were saying. God spoke to you and told you, okay, in 6 months, this is what's coming. What I've learned is that when God does speak to you in that way and he is starting to lead you maybe out of that cushy, comfortable, every 2-week paycheck job, start living off of half of your income. And I can hear everyone groaning right now saying, I can't do that. Well, then you can't afford to start a business either. Because if you can't figure out a way to cut down to half your income and start saving that, then you may not be ready to when it's time and God is calling you out to launch. So a lot of times people don't think about that. They don't give themselves a cushion and the ability to actually really be able to serve a customer for the long haul. And so the way you do that is you start like a year from now or 6 months from now living off of half of your income. Hey, that means you may have to sell that nice car that you're driving around that you have a payment on, and you may have to buy something that has no payment. Right. And that's it. You're buying with cash. You're going to have to adjust your lifestyle. You're going to have to think about, do you really need to go to Starbucks every single day? And spend, 10, $15. It's no longer $5. It's like 10, $15 now to go to Starbucks.
I
So
know. Coffee is ridiculous nowadays.
it's over the top. So, like, where right now can you sacrifice so that you don't have to sacrifice your business on the altar of not having enough income coming in at the right timing? And so there's just so much there because I think a lot of times people quit and it wasn't that your business was wrong or bad or you didn't do it right. It was that you didn't give yourself enough of a runway to actually get your business off the ground. Your business didn't have enough time or exposure based on the runway you gave yourself financially.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I had attended a conference a couple of years ago, and I remember the CEO on stage was speaking, and I wish I remembered his name to give him credit, but I can't at the moment. But I remember he said something so powerful where he was like, "If you want to leave your 9 to 5 job and do it wisely, you need to save a third of your salary." And I thought
Mhm.
that that was such a good, like, frame to exist in, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I put that into place. Like I knew I had 6 months. I planned ahead. I saved a third of my salary and then I took the leap when it was time to do so. And
yeah,
I know everyone's situation is different. Like I don't know what God is telling you to do. God might tell you to leave your job next week. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's like you can't expect to allow like, just let God do all the work, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And something that I always, always, always say and live by is look at God as your business partner, right? Like, bring him into every financial decision, mental decision, bring him into every pivot, into every new project, every step, everything. And in a business with a business partner, it's all about balance and that cohesive work. God shouldn't be just doing all the work and you're just sitting in the chair like, "Well, I hope God blesses me with $5,000 this month." You know what I mean? But at the same
right.
time, you, on the other hand, can't take control of that steering wheel and just be in this journey by yourself. It's really that healthy balance between you and him.
That's so good. And I feel like most people like something I feel like I talk to people a lot about that are moving into entrepreneurship is they don't realize how much they actually have to market themselves and how much that they actually like have to get out there and pound the pavement if they want their venture to be successful. And oftentimes they do take that approach of sitting back and hoping something's going to come to them, right? I built a website. I posted that thing one time, right? Like it's supposed to just work, right? And
Right.
there is work that goes into it, and it is hard work, and it is challenging, but that shouldn't scare us away. It should help us to understand that it's hard work to do what you're gonna do, and most of the people I find that step out and then 6 months, a year later have stepped back, they didn't realize that, like, "Hey, I'm the salesperson, I'm the customer care person, I'm the
Yeah.
designer." Like,
Yeah,
you're
all the hats.
literally all of the hats, right? You're doing it all.
Yeah, it's so funny because a lot of times people have this misconception that as soon as they leave their job, they're gonna have more freedom and flexibility. There is an extent to that, right? Like, yes, you have more freedom over what you choose to do with your time, right? You're not feeling demanded to be at a
Right,
desk between 9 to 5 PM if those were your full-time work hours.
right.
But it's just so interesting because that's the expectation I always set for everyone that says, "Hey, Angel, I wanna start this. I'm ready to leave my job." And I'm like, "Okay." That freedom and flexibility that you see people post on Instagram, "Oh, look, I'm traveling to Hawaii and I work 2 days a week." That's later. That's later, hun. Like, you need to expect to probably work the same amount of hours, if not that much more, because it's
Yeah.
gonna be tough. It's gonna be hard. But the reward in that is that you truly learn and you figure it out and you start to understand what it looks like to delegate tasks or to set certain boundaries so that you can have more of that freedom and flexibility. But
Mhm.
there's like it's like you're on the launch pad, but there's work to be done on that launch pad before you completely launch off and can have, all the custom freedom and flexibility that you're wanting to shoot for.
That's the real deal, and I love that you shared that. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Just some words of inspiration. If you feel like God is truly calling you to it, just don't give up. Just
Mm,
don't give up. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I know what it feels like to spend multiple nights in a row crying yourself to sleep
yeah.
because, you took this leap of faith and you're wondering, is God still in this picture? My bank account looks empty. I don't know where God is.
Mm,
This business doesn't seem to be working. I don't know where God is. You're those nights may come. And the reason why I want to encourage you to keep going through those circumstances is because if God is calling you to it, it doesn't mean it's just going to be easy. He might put you through the fire, but it's only to equip you. It's only to grow you. It's only to help you learn so that the business or that creative project that you feel called to can be successful. Like you have to be a certain kind of person to reach that level of success or to reach that goal. And God is going to do his work to position you to be ready to take that responsibility on. So just know those nights might happen. It's going to feel tough many times, but don't give up. Keep putting God first. Surround yourself with like-minded community and wise counsel to help you, and you're gonna be more than okay.
wow. That's such a good final thought. Where can people find and follow you, especially if they
Yeah.
wanna hire you as their coach?
Yes, I love it. So I'm very active on Instagram and TikTok at Angel Marie Official. And then you can also find me on my website through the different programs and services I offer at coachangelmarie.com.
I love it. Well, thank you for your time today. This has been so awesome.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Well, ladies, thank you for joining the Thrive Today podcast. Be sure to share, subscribe on all your social media platforms, and tell other women about this leadership podcast. And as you live your life, we want you to do it with leadership, community, and strength. Head over to thrivetoday.com and learn about our coaching programs and so, so much more. And don't forget to thrive. We'll see you next time.